They obviously thought it'd be easy, right? They thought it would be that 3-day special military operation. I think this is the revenge of the culture, the identity, the ideology, the history that Putin, in his mind, he genuinely thinks Ukraine is a part of Russia. And if a leader of that country genuinely believes that, and he has proven it, and he's written and spoken about how much he believes Ukraine is a part of Russia, about like the sheer culture, identities, and lineages. And again, it's an authoritarian country, and the entire sort of news information ecosystem in Russia is built that narrative up. Once you go to war to invade your neighbor like that, there's kind of no stopping it at this point, unfortunately. And that's kind of the sad and unfortunate thing. And that goes back to sort of the issue and problem with Russia is, you know, can it's been sort of like the delicate balance of like there's a lot of countries in Europe, especially in the eastern part, who remember what it felt like to be dominated by Moscow for decades, and they want to see the complete and utter collapse of the Russian Empire under Putin. And those farther away that didn't experience sort of a Russian Soviet occupation don't want to see that, especially I'd say even America, because they have nuclear weapons, and that is viewed as a bigger issue and problem of the global ramifications. So if you're in Eastern Europe, you don't care about that because you've already seen the worst of Russia. You don't even care about nuclear weapons. It's actually been really surprising the amount of times I've been around military personnel in Eastern Europe and how sort of unfazed they are about, like, if Russia were to use a nuclear weapon, how sort of unfazed they view that, because they've already, in their mind, they have enough, relatives and grandparents who have told them what it was like to live under Soviet occupation or oppression, that the idea of nuclear weapons to them just doesn't faze them, I think. And I think that's another interesting aspect of the Ukraine war, which is why you've seen Eastern Europeans really lean into supporting the Ukrainians. Yeah. And then from a Western European perspective, it's been sort of like, well, escalate, but here's these weapon systems. You can't use them over the border. Okay, you can use them over the border, but you can't use them on Moscow. And in a weird way, the byproduct of all this is you've ended up now with Ukraine has just created their own defense industrial base, which is exponentially cheaper and more effective and capable than anything you see in Australia, America, or Western Europe, because they have had to do this on a shoestring budget. And from their perspective, their survival is at stake in Ukraine. And, they've tried to play by the Western playbook of slow escalation, don't hit things over the border. Okay, you can hit things over the border because it's a threat to you, and then just extending their reach farther and farther out, because they're like, well, the Russians keep moving their bombers back farther and farther. We'll just keep creating weapon systems that can go farther and farther out, like to destroy all the Russian bombers. And in the case of Moscow, if with the target of Moscow, and they're going to increase this and keep on putting the pressure on it, because at this point, it's like the Russian war machine has grown way stronger. So if I remember correctly, I think before the war kicked off, Russia was only making about 1 million or 2 million artillery shells a year. Russia's making over 8 million artillery shells a year, not to mention the rest of their defense industrial bases just making stuff. And again, you can look at that and be like, well, it's going to have an effect. Yeah, it's having an impact on Russia. Like, they're going to be, whether this thing ends today or tomorrow or 10 years from now, it's going to have an impact on their country, but it's a big country, and they are absorbing the losses militarily, economically, even politically. And so I think that's kind of why, from a Ukrainian strategic perspective, they're going after Moscow,